Hey guys, so with the Democratic Party recently in the 2020 presidential election having gained control of the United States Senate with that 50-50 Senate, but they do have Kamala Harris as the vice president, the Democratic Party at this point essentially has the majority in the United States Senate, and that means that the District of Columbia becoming a state is, becoming closer and closer to reality than it has been in the last 6 years, as it's been 6 years since the Democratic Party has taken control of the United States Senate. So this would benefit the Democratic Party greatly. And on top of that, the reason why I'm talking about this today is because just yesterday, the Senate has proposed the bill, and it has been sponsored by, I believe, almost 40 Democratic senators for DC statehood, and they will vote on the bill regarding whether or not the District of Columbia should become a state very soon. While in the House of Representatives, this issue has already passed in 2020. The Senate also voted on this, but the Senate, being controlled by the GOP, voted to reject DC statehood. But the House, you need a simple majority in the House, and Democrats have controlled the House. So it's really all about the Senate, and that is something the Democrats do have control of right now. And in this video, I'm going to take a look at what that means for the Democratic Party and the Republicans, and as well as whether or not DC could really actually become a state, something that the citizens of the nation's capital has been wanting for centuries. So before we get into this, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. So if the District of Columbia were to become a state, the nation's capital is the most heavily Democratic area in the entire country. It voted by over 90% for Joe Biden, and 80% of DC voters voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. There's no way that any Republican is going to win any of the Senate seats in the District of Columbia. That is just not going to happen. DC is far more blue than Wyoming is red. So, just imagine having a Democratic senator from Wyoming. That's like saying we're going to have a Republican senator from the District of Columbia. So it's not going to go red. So that would give the Democrats right now 52 seats and Republicans 50 seats. So what this would mean is that Democrats would be very, very good going to 2022. And I'll take a look at this map in just a moment here. Before that, I want to take a look at how the American public in general views DC statehood. So according to a poll that was released last year by HarrisX and The Hill, only 48% of Americans believe that the District of Columbia should become a state. So I'll actually zoom into this a little bit closer for you guys here. As you can see, 48% of respondents to this poll agree that the District of Columbia, Washington should be made the 51st state, while 52% of Americans in general disagree with this. So it's 48-52, while if you just look at Democratic voters, 58% want DC statehood, 42% oppose it, and it's actually surprisingly high. And what also surprisingly high is the amount of Republican voters that agree to this. So 43% of Republicans want DC to be a state, while 57% don't. And 42% of Democrats don't want DC becoming a state. So those two are pretty surprising. I honestly thought it would be a lot more partisan here, because really it is something that I do think that the people in the district should be represented. They are taxed and everything just like everyone else. They do have presidential votes in the electoral college, but they have no representation in Congress that can actually vote. And they do want statehood, which is, very understandable. But, it's laid out in the Constitution. So I really don't have that much of a preference on this issue. But, it's pretty clear the Democrats want this because it will benefit them hugely. That is just the fact. It would give them 52 seats. And that just make the Democratic majority really, really strong there in the Senate. And then taking a look at GOP voters, of course, they disapprove or disagree of DC becoming a state. And then for independent voters, this is the difference here. 59% of independents do not believe that the District of Columbia should become a state, while only 41% of independents think DC should be admitted as a state. So overall, according to the American people, the District of Columbia should not become a state, but the Senate right now is 50-50. This is 52 if you include those two Democratic seats. Now, what this would mean for 2024 is that they would have 2 extra seats and they would be up for re-election in 2024, I mean 2022. The 2 senators that would be coming from the District of Columbia. It's going to be called something else, but I'm just going to call it DC for now. Those 2 senators are going to be up for re-election in 2022 because they would have to be appointed and then they have to go through a special election. So that would give the Democrats 50, right? That would give Democrats actually 52. There's no way to add more seats on this map. So pretend the Democrats have 2 more than they really have. And really, the Senate is already looking good for the Democrats. As you can see, it would be 50-50, and they still do control the vice presidency, which means that they would have 50 seats in the United States Senate still. This is according to the Cook Political Report. These are the current race ratings for 2022. Honestly, most Democrats are pretty safe. You have Hassan and you have Catherine Cortez Masto from New Hampshire and Nevada. Those 2 seats, I mean, they are a little bit closer, New Hampshire and Nevada, but really the Republicans have no chance at winning those 2 seats. They will try, they will probably do okay, but at the end of the day, they're not going to win those 2 seats. For the lean Democratic seats, you have Arizona with Mark Kelly and Georgia with Raphael Warnock, who of course was just elected, but that was a special election, which does mean that he is up for re-election in 2022. These 2 seats, I honestly think, are pretty close, but the Democrats definitely do have the edge. Raphael Warnock beat Kelly Loeffler by almost 2 points. Mark Kelly an even larger margin against incumbent Martha McSally. So both of these 2 Democrats being able to defeat incumbents in traditionally red states. So the Democrats are looking pretty good even without these seats. So right now, they would actually have 52 seats if DC was a state. So that would be looking even better. But for the GOP, they have Marco Rubio in Florida. He's probably going to win re-election. I don't doubt Marco Rubio losing in his home state of Florida. He is pretty popular there in Florida as a senator. And then for the lean Republican seats, you have Ohio, which is currently open, and Wisconsin, you have Ron Johnson. So we know Wisconsin is here. The state, of course, did go to Joe Biden, but he is an incumbent. And you saw in Maine, I mean, Susan Collins destroyed Sarah Gideon. She was a 5-time incumbent, and everything pointed to her losing, but she ended up winning in Maine. So Wisconsin with Ron Johnson, he probably is going to win re-election, but you do have 3 open seats. And what is terrible for the Republican Party is that literally the 3 seats in which Republicans are retiring from are the 3 seats that are the closest: Ohio, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Ohio, not so much. I think Republicans will probably hold on to Ohio, but North Carolina and Pennsylvania, I mean, North Carolina is a state that's moving further and further left, and this was a state that Obama, of course, won in 2008, and if Democrats put up a really good candidate, they have a very strong chance at winning North Carolina. And you saw, of course, Cal Cunningham did lose to Tom Tillis in 2020. That was pretty disappointing for the Democratic Party. However, Cal Cunningham had, of course, a scandal with him. So Pennsylvania, I think that is the biggest target for the Democratic Party. If they were to win a seat, I would say it would be from Pennsylvania. It was an open seat, and Pennsylvania is a blue state at this moment. It was won by Joe Biden by, I believe, a little bit over 1%. So that would mean the Democrats would go into 2022 looking very, very strong. And I think that they would probably almost 100% keep their Senate majority, as of course it would be 51 seats for a majority, which means that they would only have to defend 1 of their lean seats while there are 2 toss-up Republican seats. So, it's not 100%. If Democrats do really poorly, they could lose the Senate. But I think that right now it's looking very, very good for the Democratic Party if they get DC as a state. Now, the issue with this is the filibuster, because although the Democrats do have the majority, if you were to take a look at this, 50-50, they do have the majority. So if they voted like the House, it would be able to pass. If the filibuster wasn't a thing, it would be able to pass. So in the House of Representatives, the filibuster has already been repealed. So all you need is a simple majority. You can't threaten with a filibuster. And so I'm going to try to explain the filibuster. Essentially, in the Senate, discussion for a bill can last as long as it can. So that was something the framers wanted. And I mean, it was a pretty good idea at the beginning. Of course, more discussion on bills, that was good. But, as America became more and more polarized, they began to use this in their favor for their political gain. So essentially what the filibuster is since discussion can last as long as possible, an individual can just go up and speak for as long as they can, and they don't actually have to speak about, anything. You probably have seen Ted Cruz reading, a children's book and, filibustering something. I forgot what it was. And, you have Strom Thurmond, who in the 60s tried to oppose the Civil Rights Act, and he filibustered for over 24 hours. Although it did not work, he still sat there and talked for 24 hours. Now, you're probably asking, why can't they just sit it out? Because if you have, the party that opposes the bill, they just have to line senators up. So one senator goes, and then they talk for, let's say, 10 hours, and then they go, they rest, and there's like 50 other senators that will also talk for 10 hours. And it just makes it that the Senate cannot do anything, and the bill essentially fails. And you need 60 votes to stop a filibuster, which means that 60 senators essentially is required to pass any piece of major legislation. However, there is something known as the nuclear option, and that is the way that the Democratic Party can get DC statehood. There is a rule called Rule 22, I believe, and basically, something just has to say that that rule was violated, and you just need a majority of the Senate, which the Democrats do have. So essentially, what that means is that there would only, which means that it would only require 50 senators to do anything. So that's why Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett could be nominated to the court, because the nuclear option was used just like it was used by Harry Reid in 2013. And then when Republicans gained control in 2017, I believe, in 2017, Mitch McConnell did the same thing, which is why those court appointments did go through the Senate, because it only needed a simple majority. So the Democrats could use their 50-seat majority to end the filibuster. And that is something that, many people do want, but many people do oppose, because the benefit of the filibuster is that bills would be more moderate. However, this thing that's bad about it is that a group of 41 senators, which is a pretty clear minority, can block any piece of legislation to pass. As long as 41 people in the Senate don't want something, it is not going to pass at this point in time. So, there's good things and bad things. But the problem for Democrats is they do not have enough, senators that want to repeal the filibuster. Joe Biden at one point even said that he did not want to repeal it, but of course he does now. And the thing with this is that if you repeal the filibuster, if the Democrats lose the Senate in the future, it's not going to benefit them in any way in the future. Then Republicans can just do whatever they want. But having DC statehood, that would really help them a lot, actually, with that. So that's why a lot of Democrats are supporting it. But the problem is that 2 Democratic senators do not support, or 2 senators have publicly voiced opposition. My assumption is that the other senators from the Democratic Party do support ending the filibuster. So, you saw Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer were, discussing a power sharing agreement because it was a 50-50 Senate. But I believe just 2 days ago, Mitch McConnell has said that since these 2 Democratic senators oppose ending the filibuster, which is really what Mitch McConnell wanted, all he wanted was the filibuster to stay, so the Democrats just couldn't pass whatever they wanted. So for Mitch McConnell, he got what he wanted essentially, which is why he is now handing power over to Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, which means they can do all the restructuring of all the committees. And yes, that would make Bernie Sanders the head of budgeting. So essentially, the 2 Democrats that oppose ending the filibuster, which basically blocks DC statehood, are Joe Manchin of West Virginia. That is, it's understandable. He is a Democrat from West Virginia. I think that if he did it, he would definitely lose re-election. He is up for re-election in 2024, I believe. I believe he won in 2018. He was able to hold on to his seat. So West Virginia, Joe Manchin, it would be terrible if he voted for it for his re-election. And finally, you have Kyrsten Sinema, the senior senator from Arizona. Like in 2018, she's a Democrat, but she has said that, she's told Mitch McConnell that she is not going to support ending the filibuster, and any one of these senators opposing it basically ruins the chances of that ever happening. So that's why you have 52 over here and 50 that support ending the filibuster, which I mean is basically exactly the same as the Harris X poll. So the chances of ending the filibuster, unless you somehow get 2 Republicans to support it, I mean, it just really does not seem that likely. And I realize that my map is messed up somewhere. Yeah, that should be red. I don't know which state I got wrong, to be honest, but just just assume that's right. I'm really not sure what state I actually got wrong here, but essentially it's 50-50, or it's 52-48 right now. Yeah, one of the Democratic seats I didn't give to them, and I gave Maine to the Democrats, so sorry about that. But essentially right now, it's these 2 senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, that is basically blocking the filibuster to end. And you can see, of course, McConnell drops filibuster demand because Democrats, basically he wanted Chuck Schumer to say that Chuck Schumer would not want to end the filibuster. But with those 2 Democratic senators saying that they would not vote for it no matter what, basically Mitch McConnell is going to get what he wants without any sort of promise from Chuck Schumer himself. So that is why right now power is going to be handed to Chuck Schumer. However, the filibuster will not end, which means that the chances of the District of Columbia becoming a state, giving Democrats that 52-seat Senate, really is looking pretty unlikely at this moment in time. So yeah, I think that right now the chances of DC becoming a state, anytime soon is really, really small. And the whole thing with the filibuster is that once Democrats end this, the Republicans, if they ever gain control, I mean, they will be able to do whatever they want as well, reversing many things that the Democrats could be able to do right now. So the filibuster essentially just makes things more moderate, so more bipartisan support is needed. And that's why it also requires 60 votes for the legislation to give that $1.7 trillion stimulus check for the additional $1,400 for each adult. So that's why 60 votes is needed in the Senate for really anything major to pass, which is why right now, without the support of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, the statehood for District of Columbia is looking very, very unlikely. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like this video, comment down below whether or not you think DC will be able to become a state anytime soon. And also comment down below whether you or not you want DC, or you want to end whether or not you want DC to become a state, or if you want, whether or not you explain why you want to end or not end the filibuster. I'd be happy to read, your opinions down there. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Join my Discord server, of course, link at the very top of the description below. And I will see you guys in the next video.